Welcome to the From Concealment Podcast, the show for firearm enthusiasts who like to shoot, train, carry, and compete. Get ready for some shooting and sight, firearm and accessory reviews, and of course, insight on concealed carry. And now, broadcasting from behind enemy lines in the From Concealment studio, it's Pete Mitchell and Dan Sams.
Hey, Freedom Nation, this is Pete Mitchell.
And I'm feeling remarkably calm. Remarkably calm.
As you choke through that.
As I choked through that, I'm actually doing quite well. I'm Dan Sams. I'm so glad to be here with you, Pete.
You know, what's funny is I'm in this group on Facebook. Since we were right before we started, we were talking about Facebook. And, you know, this is for everyone who's not watching Facebook Live. Dan was like, oh, you know, Mark, we hope that you'll hear what we have to say and finally embrace the Second Amendment, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm in this group on Facebook where the group is designed so you can buy and sell gun accessories. Now, of course, you can't buy and sell guns, right? Because Facebook doesn't allow that. But you can buy and sell gun accessories. So I got tagged as a community violator by Facebook because I said, you can DM me, these are Glock 9mm accessories, because I use the word Glock and I also said 1911. But like those two just, oh, you're a violator. I'm like, that's not even against your own rules. How am I a violator? So I hit review and they came back, no, we reviewed it. You're a violator. I'm like, I'm not even a violator. I just was like, dude, these are what these parts are. I wasn't selling a Glock. I wasn't selling a 1911.
They just don't care.
No,
yeah.
They don't.
Well, and the whole reviewing violations, and they seem to always go against you, even when it's, I mean, I had one that was clearly a mistake. I think somebody accidentally hit report because it wasn't even anything that anybody would be offended at. And somebody said, like, well, I don't know if I did this to you, but I've accidentally reported people when I hit the wrong button or whatever. And no, the review did nothing. They didn't care. I was still in Facebook jail. So, no, well, that's the way it goes.
Yep. That kind of stuff happens to me all the time with Facebook. But, you know, it was interesting. I was reading an article the other day on how many background checks were done in 2020.
Yeah.
And I think the high before that was like the first year Clinton was in office or something like that. And then last year. Last year was like I think the high was something like 25 million to 29 million background checks. And then 2020, there was like 38 to 39 million background checks. Like it was so extremely high. And so,
man, because
Biden took office, it's now like the second wave of people buying up guns as quickly as they can.
Man.
A good buddy of mine reached out to me last week and he's like, oh yeah, I want to get this gun. And he tells me what it is. And I'm like, yeah, you're not getting that in California. I'm like, sorry, bro, that ain't on the roster. And he's like, well, what is on the roster? I go, in that size, you know, you're looking at an M&P Shield, the first one, not 2.0. And you're looking at a Glock 26, but, you know, it's a double stack, but it's going to be easier to find a Glock 26 than even a Shield. So he ends up finding a Glock 26 on Gunbroker. You ready for this? For $700.
Oh, dear.
And he bought it because it was, wait for this, Gen 3. And the guy, no, on Gunbroker, Californians can buy this. So, you know, crack up the price. They got no guns, and I got one that they can actually buy in whatever state he was in. So
that is heartbreaking. I feel
welcome to California.
That is
where my guns now are the biggest part of my portfolio.
Yep, that'll happen.
Oh man, crazy.
Oh man. Well, speaking of guns, I've got two guns I'm excited about that I want to talk about today. Also, I think we could talk about monetary theory today, given that we touched on Bitcoin last week. So, I had an interesting conversation with a friend of mine who, let's just say, he is in the business of buying and selling companies on a pretty large scale.
Nice.
And so he's into economics, and he's pretty libertarian, but he was discussing this whole concept of modern monetary theory, and he's not necessarily subscribing to it, but the idea that the American dollar is in demand, that it's still, there's all these reasons it's traded, and there is a perceived value to it, even though we don't really have anything backing it up,
sure,
other than, I would argue, the American workforce. And so
right.
I actually believe it's backed by slavery in the form of the American workforce. But he was talking about, essentially, if the employment rate can stay up or the unemployment rate can stay low effectively, and inflation remains within a certain manageable sphere, then the national debt, in their theory, doesn't really matter, because we're essentially just printing more dollars to meet the demand of dollars. And I'm like, doesn't that sound a little scary? Now, what he was saying is, like, here's the thing. They get away with it because, and he's explaining how we get away with it because the perception is there and unemployment stays low. And what happens is we just kind of keep going. But all of that requires that the American workforce stays at a certain level. But as soon as something happens and all of a sudden people are like, why are we using these dollars? Or if the American workforce does not grow in the way that it needs to, right? Because, I mean, our population is down, birth rate is low. And so it was really interesting because it helped me see a little bit of why they keep getting away with this. Now, the modern monetary theory guys are like, see, it's going to be fine. Don't even worry about any of this. And I'm like, we can't just keep printing more money. Like, I don't care what you say. That's not going to work long term. Like, it's just not. But it was helpful to understand a little bit of, like, okay, I see how they're getting away with this. I see how functionally we've gotten away with it. I thought that was interesting, especially related to all the Bitcoin stuff and why currency has any perceived value. Just a really interesting discussion yesterday. So
what I find interesting too is I've, really jumped into this whole Bitcoin world is how it was all based off of a 9-page white paper. Like, how crazy is that? Like, I read it and I'm like, I don't understand any of this because it's all like techie stuff.
Yeah.
But that 9-page white paper, like, genuinely solved a big problem. But I mean, the problem that they have now, and we talked about this on, a couple of the last podcasts, is that it's not stable. Like, none of the crypto coins are stable. I shouldn't say none of them, but they're pretty much not stable because they're really not tied to anything. They're not tied to, like, the American workforce, which, while the dollar is not stable, it's way more stable than crypto because, it just kind of does this. And then, like, if you're trading it, you notice the dips and the jumps on a daily basis. But when you're using it to buy food, you don't, because it doesn't make its way down to our actual purchases as quickly.
Yeah.
In most cases. And, but I mean, I'm like, okay, so the next problem that someone needs to figure out is, how do you make it stable so you can use it as currency? You can't tie it to gold because you would have to actually own the gold. And that means you would have to be a country, which means you would have to replace your own currency with your cryptocurrency. Doesn't make any sense unless, a new country gets formed and, like a new America gets formed and they go, hey, you know what? We're using crypto. We're not going to have a central bank. This is how we're going to do it. And we're going to tie it to gold. Then you could actually have a stable currency, but that's not going to happen.
You did just describe the libertarian dream right there.
Yes, which is why I also said it's not going to happen.
Hey, but listen, the director of the CIA just told everybody that libertarians are a threat to democracy.
Which is great, because now we're going to start getting guns, baby, and money.
That's what I was so excited. I'm like, oh man, he even, like, described us like we're terrorists. And I'm like, does that mean you're going to give me AK-47s?
I know. When does the Iran Contra come to me, baby? I'll be your. Come on.
Have you seen the meme of like the old like 17th century, 18th century guy who's going like on a table, like put money in my hand, and it's like libertarians when the CIA director labels them.
Oh, that's nice.
Where's my guns and money?
Where's my cut of this?
Oh, it's so great.
I found it interesting that that what's her name, Yellen, that she was like, oh, we got to stop cryptocurrencies, we got to stop Bitcoin, and I'm like, yeah, it's a threat to your whole job. It's a threat to what you do. And it's mainly used for illicit stuff. I would agree. It's mainly used for illicit stuff right now in the United States. I would actually argue that like in Africa, I watched a great documentary over the weekend on how they're using it in Africa. I'm like, shoot, man, in Africa, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting, man. I really think that, one of the documentaries that I watched, the guy was like, until there's that killer app, when someone comes up with the killer app and everyone's got to have it, because that's what's going to push it mainstream. And I would make the argument that you have to make it easy for people to get in and easy for people to get their money. So I think if you had, and I might have shared this before, if you had a service like ClickFunnels, right, that's on hundreds of thousands of websites, hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs use it, and they already offer Stripe and integrations with all the major gateways. If you just made one of them crypto, like have it built into the site, where now a site owner is like, wait a second, I can now accept Bitcoin? Sure, I'll do that.
Oh,
and I can get it out easy enough. And now you've created a whole nother revenue stream and kept your fees reasonable.
Yeah.
Like I personally think Coinbase's fees are reasonable.
Yeah.
Kept them reasonable.
Yeah.
And dude, I mean, you could, I don't know that you could like do it quickly, but you could really start to make Bitcoin go mainstream.
Oh, I would accept it. If there was a way to accept it in my business, I would accept it today. Like I would turn that on. That would be so much. I would, just for the excitement of it and the fun, I would do it. Even with the risk involved, I think it would be kind of fun. The potential.
What would be kind of cool is you could actually, this is the marketing mind to me going, it doesn't matter if anyone ever used it. You could get all kinds of publicity. Ohio marketing consultant accepts Bitcoin payment. First Ohio marketing consultant accepts Bitcoin payment from clients.
Yep. Well, and I could even invoice in Bitcoin. I could build a business around it.
Because you could do it. I mean, literally I might do this now for my business. Because you got a Coinbase account. Just, hey, we accept it. And you can just give someone the QR code, the payment address. And then now it's just a press release. It's just a press release. Send it out. Get the publicity. Doesn't matter if anyone actually uses it.
Do it, Pete. This is good. I'm in. I like it.
Oh, dude, I wonder if I could do that for go to one of my gun clients and go, hey, be the first gun guy to accept Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, they're going to have to. Did you see about who was it that got their Wells Fargo account got shut down? This is maybe a week and a half ago, maybe just last week. They said they had $500,000 in the bank account, and Wells Fargo said, we don't want to do business with you anymore. Man, I don't remember who it was. But they shut down a gun company. Hold on.
I know we're both like Googling it as quick as you can.
Yeah. By the way, don't
Man, Godiva is to shut down all 128 brick and mortar stores in North America.
Yikes. All right. I can't find it on here yet. Yeah. It was like a Pages post, like it was on their Facebook post. They're like, we just lost our account. Like I didn't find an article about it. It was somebody shared it. They were following that gun page, and it wasn't anybody major. It was like, I think it was probably just a local gun shop. Like
right.
So I thought that was interesting and a little scary. But hey, don't let me forget, because I want to talk about some fun guns that I'm excited about.
Yeah. Well, no, let's start talking about them.
Yeah. So God has blessed me with some really cool people in my church that know guns and love guns. And so I was hanging out with we'll call him Chad. I was hanging out with Chad and his family recently. Chad is Marine, has all kinds of experience, and is in a pretty good job. He's not rich, but he's in a position to be able to buy things now and then, right? And so he was explaining he was working for some military contracting company, and he said, "Well, we had this situation where I could buy effectively, if I'm understanding him right, anything he wanted from H&K at like 60% off." So he gets this. Hold on, let me make sure I'm calling it the right thing. It was an H&K 91. Have you seen these things?
Nope.
Let me make sure I'm saying it right. It essentially looks like an oversized MP5, and on it, it fires 308s. So like, just imagine like an MP5. Effectively, I mean, like that kind of design that shoots a 308 round. It is lightweight. It looks freaking cool. And he's like, it's accurate. It's probably not quite as accurate as a longer barrel, AR-10 or whatever. But he says the price I got it for was ridiculously low. And he was explaining that the trigger group functions the same as an MP5. So if you have access to full auto or binary or whatever trigger groups for an H&K MP5, you can actually transfer those over onto here. And I'm like, that is awesome. So anyway, cool gun. I was impressed with it. It was just a fun little finesse, fancy gun. And I'm like, well, now I'm interested. Like, how does one get one of these? And he's like, well, they don't really import those anymore. But he mentioned this PTR has all the stamping equipment, and they're essentially making that same gun now in the US. And so they have a variety of them, like the PTR 100, the PTR 10, whatever, and they're all different painted colors and whatever. But check it out. If you go to ptr-us.com, and look up their various like A3SK 114, just some cool guns. So yeah, I don't know if you can have you found it yet?
I found the H&K one that you're talking about.
Yeah. Which admittedly looks a little cooler than some of these that PTR is making, but thought that was just a fun, special little gun. Yeah. What's
funny is a buddy of mine from church, he and I have been talking back and forth about getting an FFL. He already started down the path, and then that's what made me reach out to him and go, hey, I'm thinking about this. Of course, I look at it as a marketing guy, right? Marketing and business. I'm like, where's the real money in this game? Because it's tough to find the money. Like, I don't believe the money is in firearms themselves. It's in the accessories. Like, big time on the accessories.
And I would say in the training. I mean, it's just like our other stuff. Man. The
100%.
Yeah.
But here in California, if you have the range and you offer the training, that's the magic right there.
Yeah.
The problem is, like, here in Southern California, there's only so many ranges that you can go to. There's a lot of different training companies, so they're all competing with each other. And now they got to cut in the range themselves, usually in an hourly fee for the range that they're renting. That eats into your profits. You're, of course, limited to how many people you can have come through, all that type of stuff.
Yep.
So I would 100% agree with you that that's where the money is, unless you could also start figuring, okay, how can I do training out of the range? Like, how can I do more classroom training, which there's only a few things that you can do that people would actually show up for. Reloading courses are one of them, right? Yep. So you could do more reloading courses, and then you're not eating up your range time. Now it's usually they have an office of some sort that they could, do those classes in. Yeah, so I'm gonna go down the route and get my NRA certifications just because those are still accepted by the various government organizations as, okay, you're now an NRA certified instructor. So I'm going to go down that path just so I've got it. Not that I'm necessarily going to, like, I still consider myself the student. I don't consider myself the trainer. But if I have those certifications, then that opens up the possibilities down the line.
Yep. That sounds good, man.
But I agree with you. That's where the real money is. But again, Southern
It's
California, I think you got to have the range too. And I wouldn't want to own a range in Southern California. And that's kind of the problem with being an FFL in California is, like my buddy and I were talking yesterday at church, is like, it's actually easier to get the FFL than it is to get through California's crap to get everything you need from them. And it's kind of ridiculous. So we were looking at, where's the angle if you're an FFL in California?
Yeah.
And I think one of the angles, and the problem is I just don't know that it's enough of a profit, but it would be in the AR9 business. And I think that's the angle that I would take. I would manufacture AR9s as an FFL.
Yep.
And try and go down that path.
It's not a bad deal.
It's not as crowded as AR-15.
Yep.
And it is in demand and becoming more in demand.
It's room in that market, man. Well, the other thing I would think about, if you are going to have a brick and mortar location, I would think about what it would be like to do, defense training with a simulator. I know it's not the same. And I would say though, that it's one of the things, I mean, you obviously don't have to have a range, you have to have a room for it. But some of these simulators are pretty decent. They're not crazy money to put in. And for a defensive, like
about
individual
$25,000 to install.
Yeah. That's no joke.
For used.
That's not killer money. That's a chunk, right? But I'd be interested in that. And if you had somebody, you could do individual trainings there. I mean, that's where you do individual training is in a simulator where you're walking through these scenarios and you're coaching them about the responses.
The biggest problem that I have with that, because there's two main companies here in Southern California that have it. Fast OC is one of them. They've got it. And to my knowledge, they haven't really marketed it.
Yeah.
I know they've used it, but they haven't really marketed it. Yeah. The biggest problem that I see with it, which right now you might be able to get away with it, is when you buy a gun, you really want to pull the trigger. Like that's what you really want to do. Yeah. It's not, I want to go, I mean, it's kind of fun, simulation, yada, 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 but I really want to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And that's the experience that people are after. Now, right now, because of ammo being so stinking expensive, I was on Gunbroker and I saw it selling for 9mm, $1 a round. And I was like, holy crap. This is just getting insane right now.
It really is.
And, because of the price, maybe people would be open to it. But again, I think it's going to be a lot harder to sell than getting people to pull the trigger because that's what they want to do.
Yep. Man, you're exactly right. It is. It's more of like you get a little slice in there, but a $25,000 slice might not be.
Well, see, I think you could use it as a great upsell. So come to our reloading class. We'll give you a gift certificate to, for 20 minutes on the whatever the machine's called. I can't remember what it is. Come to this class. That's how I think you have to get people to go, oh, I want to use this. So maybe it's all your classes. It's your CCW. It's everything. You're giving out these gift certificates for, 20 minutes on the simulator. So that way people go, wow, this thing is fun. I want to do it. But you have to figure out a way to get more people to do it and then want to come back for more. And so then I would do the bounce back coupon. It would be like, okay, great. You got your free one here. If you come back in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we'll give you 50% off. You come back and then, it's 25% off. And then now they just keep coming back.
Yeah. I like the sound of that. And anytime it's built into a package so that they're getting a taste of it. Because I mean, I did it once and I'm like, this is cool. And I'm improving my response time.
Oh, I imagine I haven't done one. I imagine it's really cool, especially with, seeing all the different, scenarios that they can put up. Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, it's not real, but it is, it's real enough that like you're taking it seriously. And most of the guns now have CO2 in them. So you have the recoil, everything's happening, except for an actual round coming out of the end of it. So yeah, man, that's cool. Well, I hope you guys crack the nut and open that thing up and make this.
He was funny because he was doing it. He goes, you have to do it with the intent that you're turning it into a business. And he's like, I just kind of want to do the transfers for my friends and get parts and guns cheaper. And I'm like, I totally get that, right?
Yep.
I mean, I totally get it. But I look at it, I'm like, okay, if I'm going to go down this path, how can I make money at this? And again, everything comes back to it's California. Do you really want to go through that in California, knowing that they want to shut you down? They want to throw you in jail just because you like guns.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the world we live in out here.
Yep. You picked a heck of a hobby living
in
California. Right? So yeah, I want to see you do it though, Pete. I just don't want you to go to jail. So let me know what you end up doing. Maybe offline we'll have to talk about that.
Well, I wouldn't go to jail. I mean, because I would be the guy that would literally do everything by the book, because I freaking destroyed my 80%ers when the state came out with that stupid rule. Because I was like, I'm not going to jail for this. I
understand. Yeah. Well, I also don't want you to lose money either. So, but I like the idea of you selling AR9s and I was looking at that. I'm like, all right, so what's a CNC machine, going to cost? And, how long does it take for it to make it? Because I'm trying to do the math in my head, what's the blank cost? All that stuff, right? I'm going through it all in my head. And, there's a company called Titan right by Fast OC. They're a couple of storefronts over. And all the guys know each other from both companies. And they make a lot of AR9s for competition. Mm-hmm.
And they've done something on theirs that's unique to them. I can't remember what it was exactly, but it was one little thing. I don't know if they patented it. I'm sure they did. But also I look at this market and I'm like, all right, and no one knows how to market for crap, right? It's just gun lovers.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm a marketing guy. That's what I do. Can I figure out a play here in this industry that I love so much to make money at it?
I don't
know that there is.
Well, we're seeing an opening in the market, a demand.
Which I don't know how long that's going to last, though. That's the other thing too, right?
Well, yeah, maybe the demand as it is now might not be the same, but I mean, the AR9 concept is still fresh enough. It's interesting enough, and not everybody has them. Facing facts, that's not your first AR.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to get your 5.56 or whatever, but man, once you realize what you can do with an AR pistol, especially an AR9, and if you're doing the pistol competitions where you're allowed to use those, right? There's all kinds of there's a whole niche there that it's your second gun buy, right? It's your second AR buy.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said for that. Cause I want one, I want an AR9. I mean, looks cool. Sounds cool. It's on my list.
I got to tell you, man, my favorite gun to shoot is my Ruger PCC.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's incredibly fun to shoot because it's okay, I can barely feel anything, barely feel any recoil on that crazy thing.
Yep.
And then at the same time, it's wow, okay, I'd really love it if this was an AR platform because it'd be easier to drop the mag. I'd train more on, the way that the whole Ruger PCC, it's set up differently, right? It's not as clean as Eugene Stoner's beautiful, beautiful design of the AR platform. So yeah, I want an AR9.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, you can imagine. I've shot some with that had some really special ammo in it. There's a smoothness to it because there's just no room for recoil. I mean, it's taken care of, and you're just on. And so you think about it in a pistol. To me, that makes for a really wonderful home defense weapon.
Oh, totally.
I mean, you go around corners, you do what you need to. It's teeny tiny. It's awesome.
That's what I've said before. If California allowed AR pistols, that would be my home defense weapon.
Mm-hmm.
As it stands right now, they pretty much don't. So I don't want to get into trouble with the state of California because they'd throw you in jail for 10 years just because you like guns. So,
yeah.
But if I was in a free state,
I feel like that needs to be our T-shirt, Pete. Like we need to make a T-shirt that is like, but if I was in a free state, Pete.
Make California free again.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of AR platform, the other gun I wanted to mention today that I'm excited about. Have we talked about Patriot Ordnance firearms? We have, because we talked about that POF Rebel pistol a while back.
Oh, yeah, sure.
That's essentially all right. So real quick background on Patriot Ordnance. I came across them years ago. It was one of the first ones that like was other than just the standard AR makers that was just doing some kind of like fun tinkering. And I thought was cool. Right. Before I'd heard about Q, before I'd heard about all these other things. I can't say I was following POF, but interested in them, seeing them do some cool things. And it feels like they have come into a new era of creativity in the last couple of years, and they're just putting out some really cool stuff. And we already talked about the Rebel pistol, but what I'm just now hearing about is they're coming out with an AR in 308 that is built to be the same size and weight as a standard AR. And so the idea is they've finagled everything to make sure that this thing is 7.3 pounds. So it is lightweight. It feels like an AR or like an AR-15, but it's fire in 308. Recoil is still low, all that kind of stuff. The whole length is something like 34 inches. It's got a 16.5-inch barrel. But I'm intrigued at it from in the perspective. I mean, most of the time you get an AR-10. I don't know, couldn't even tell you what the average weight is, but you tell, like when you pick up an AR-10, you feel that weight. And so these guys have not cheapened the thing, but they have just cut out weight, built a very solid AR-10 effectively that is the size and weight of an AR. So if you're training with a regular AR, you're comfortable with that weight, you get used to it. You can switch to the 308 platform and you're good to go, which is particularly interesting right now. And we've mentioned this a little bit. Now is a good time to branch out into some other calibers. And it's still hard to find ammo for just about anything. We'll admit that. But right now, sometimes you can get 308 cheaper than you can get 5.56.
Really?
And so to be able to, in a couple of places here, we're finding 308 at least the same, sometimes cheaper, which is crazy. And that depends on the gun store and all that kind of stuff. But even with the way that we're seeing the price fluctuation, 5.56 has gone up so high, right? 308, I mean, there's been some fluctuation, but it's not crazy high. And so now's a great time to get in 308 because you're not feeling the pinch in the same way that you would have otherwise to buy, what was normally more expensive ammo. And man, 308, I'll just be honest, for what you can do with 308, it punches holes, it shoots further, it's all kinds of wonderful things out of a 308. Just worth considering, man. If you're thinking about branching out into a new caliber, or if you're thinking about just ammo prices and how it doesn't hurt that much to buy 308 anymore just because everything else is so expensive. I should say comparatively, it doesn't hurt as much. So this piston-driven POF revolution, definitely worth checking out if you're thinking about getting into the 308 game. Definitely worth checking out. So yeah, that was my my last little nod for today of cool guns. So
yeah, no, I love it. Now, you can get NFA items out there in your state, right?
Sure. Yeah.
What's the lead time on getting a silencer?
Well, buying it, I mean, I could buy one today.
Right.
I think the processing,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Getting the item itself, not a big deal. But I think the wait was, I think we were between, and the last I'd heard was 6 months, but I have heard some talk about 9 months.
Wow.
So you're looking at a wait. I would say you're probably right now, you should probably guess at 9 months. I mean, that's what I would expect. I'd have to ask one of the guys, because I mean, of course, at Lake Erie Arms, we're a class 3 dealer and we sell suppressors and all that is awesome. But yeah, you're going to be waiting. Same, of course, with an SBR or whatever. Yeah, which is just the whole thing is nuts. So
yeah.
I
remember Clint Smith. He was selling an SBR with a silencer welded on, so it was one tax stamp for it, and he was like, "This is your home defense weapon because it's an SBR and it's got the silencer." And so he's like, "This is what you need in your home." And I'm like, "Oh man, if I lived in a free state, how great would that be to have that?" That's the other thing too, man. I think if I were in California and I owned a range, I think I would get the FFL to sell weapons as well. I mean, I think so many people go in there and try out guns. Like a buddy of mine, I do a program with him for auto detailers, and I mean, he's gone to the range with me. He doesn't at this point doesn't have any guns himself, though he's been wanting to get one. His wife's finally on board, and so one of the local training companies, I think it's All Safe Defense. I know it's TJ. TJ is the guy who runs it. Everybody in the industry looks up to TJ. Like TJ's been in the industry for so long. He's one of the best trainers there is. Michael Hernandez, who I've had as a guest on here one of the weeks when you were gone, he works with TJ at his company. They did a course, and I don't know how often they do it, but the whole premise of the course is we're going to let you try out various different handguns so you can figure out what it is that you want to buy. And we're going to answer different questions like, what kind of things do you want for concealment if you're going to go the concealed carry route? And so this was like perfect for my buddy because he's like, yeah, me and my wife were going to go to this thing. I can't remember what it cost, but it was like, I don't know. I think he said it was like $120. And I don't know if that was each or for both of them. I don't remember because to him, I mean, he makes so much money, he wouldn't have cared. It's just like, he'd been like, whatever. Right. And, so I was asking him, I'm like, hey, what'd you think? He's like, I loved it, man. It was perfect. Cause they have the plastic replica guns and you're practicing with those first before you actually fire the gun. Cause you got to figure there's a lot of people who've probably never fired a gun who go on through this class who are like, hey, look, I need to get a gun. I don't know what to get. And he was just like, this is perfect. And we got to try all these different firearms to figure out what is it exactly that we liked. And I was like, man, that's just a brilliant idea in this market. I don't know that you could do it in other markets, but in this market, so many people want to buy a gun, don't know what to buy. Like I said, I had to tell my buddy, go buy this Glock 26 on Gunbroker for $700 because it's the only thing you're going to get.
Yep.
And you want a concealed carry. And by the way, hurry up and apply to the sheriff for your concealed carry permit because it's going to take you 90 days minimum in order to get it. So start that process now before the gun's even here. Just do it.
Yep.
I mean, yeah.
Well, and so you're also, I would actually even add to that anybody, even people who know guns and are experienced around guns, there's always new guns being made. I mean, think about you and I are on guns a lot. There are thousands of gun platforms we've never shot. And so even the experienced guys, we want to try it out. And I wouldn't even consider myself, but so experienced, right? And so that's why we used to do try before you buy events at Lake Erie Arms back pre-COVID. And we would do these events. We'd provide hot dogs or, whatever, free food, free drinks, not alcohol, right? But free food and drinks. You'd come out, hang out a little bit. And then we'd have whatever was to the range and we'd have a theme, right? So Silencer Co. would sometimes sponsor one for suppressors and we'd do a whole day with them and you could test out all these various guns with suppressors on them. Or we would do a conceal carry event and we would have all the major conceal carry guns from all the major manufacturers. And you could go right down the line. We'd be at our outdoor range and you could shoot each one of them and we'd give you like 2 or 3 rounds in each one. And you could test out and figure out which one you liked. And we sold a lot of guns like that because people could come and really get a feel for what worked. And and then we would normally do a little thing where you could vote on what your favorite was.
Oh, interesting.
And interestingly enough, it would surprise you what would win. But it was actually the Walther that would win a lot of the times. Walther won 1 year. I think it was.
Was never shot a Walther.
Oh, you're missing out.
I know.
Yeah, it's the best.
I think the only one that's on the roster in California is a 22. And I'm like, I don't want to get a 22 because I don't even know that I could get approved to carry a 22 because it's such a small round. So I'm like,
I wouldn't recommend carrying a 22 anyway.
Well, I wouldn't either. That's why I don't think you can. I don't. Yeah, So
yeah, that's you can't even legally. That's awesome. Yeah. No, but really recommend that. And what you're describing right there, I can tell you he's exactly right. That works really well. We sell a lot of guns that way. Plus, it's fun. We'll sync them up with the season. It's making me hate COVID restrictions all the more because it was so much every month. And when the weather was warm, and so as we were coming in the fall, we'd have a hunting event, and like you'd come and test out shotguns for turkey hunting, and then all this other. It was just fun, man.
Would you guys sell the guns right there?
Yeah. Oh, like we have a little range out back of the shop that you get in a little side by side. We drive you out there, you shoot. And so we only have certain people back there at a time. Like, I don't know if we ever had more than 6 people, so we could really regulate that. And then, you'd come back and have some lunch in the back of the shop and walk on into the front and buy your favorite gun. And it would be packed. We would actually clear out our training room and put product in there because of the demand. And so it was great. We do real well those weekends. It's radio would come out. I'm all reminiscing now. Like I miss the days.
Yeah, I know. It's like back in the good old days because I'm thinking they didn't do that with my buddy's class. I mean, I didn't hear anything like I don't think they're FFL, so I don't think they could sell firearms themselves, but they could hook up with an FFL and go, hey, look, this is the event we're doing. Let's figure out some way that you can either help fill the event and therefore they get paid. And then we'll let everyone buy guns from you or,
Yeah. There's a way to cross promote that and make money on both ends. Because we were doing the whole thing. I mean, in fact, the thing was free. It was a free event. Like you come out.
You guys did them free.
You could come out and literally get free lunch and shoot at the range for free. Shoot as many as you might have burned up a box of ammo per person. I'm sure it wasn't that much, but like by the time you shot all the guns, if you did, most people were courteous enough to only test, 2 or 3 to see what they really wanted. But man, you could theoretically come and just have a nice, afternoon shooting and eating lunch and go on your way. But man, we have such loyal loyal customers, man. People would buy like crazy. We made money on those events and it was good.
See, I would have probably charged like $20 and then given that to them as a credit against the gun that they bought that day.
See, that's what I would also do. But the guys that run Lake Erie Arms are nicer than me. I will just say
it's not even about being nicer. It's like, look, I only want people who are serious there. And I'm cool if you don't like anything and don't want to buy anything, no problem. You paid for the ammo. I mean, that's really what it is. So you got serious people, right? And that way you got only the serious people who are taking up the time on the firearms instead of, you having to wait because there's like 5 people who want to try out this one and 4 of them are looky-loos and not really, serious about it. Like you just get the serious people. Like that's what I want to cater to, just the serious people.
Yep. I feel you, but here's the other thing. It is still it's like a community cookout. I mean, it's super fun. I'm wondering sometimes if they're like, we know we're going to make our money. Let's just make this as most fun as it can be. Unfortunately,
I think a lot of businesses are like that. They're like, well, look at all this gross. There's got to be some net around here somewhere. Like that's how they run their business. They don't actually look at the numbers and go, okay, this much is coming in, this much is going out. Therefore we make X.
Yeah.
They're just looking at it going, there's all this gross. There's got to be some net somewhere.
I think you're right. Unfortunately, a lot of companies do that.
Yeah.
Where I'm almost too much the opposite, that I want to have such a margin that I'm like, I probably could sell more in number at a lower margin and make more. But I'm like, man, I want to get that money. So,
no, I think that's one of the reasons why I like the training industry so much. And you and I work with businesses on this end because it is all margin, right? I mean, there's hardly any hard costs involved. Very, very little hard costs. I mean, there's some, but it's kind of like our guys who are detailers that I work with. We always make the joke, okay, it might cost you, if you're doing a full, complete interior, exterior detail, maybe $5 in hard costs, right? It's like, it's all time and knowledge. That's what you're
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of flexibility that you could figure out in promotional activities and discounts if you want to go that route, or, package deals, things like that. That's the reason why I love it. That's why I love the training industry.
And it changes with you. Like, as you get better at it, you're like, my time is worth more money now. And so, and it sometimes from client to client, I'm packaging things different for each of them. And it's kind of fun, man. Like, I feel like what we do in the marketing is a direct, Austrian economics at work, man. It is like, what's it worth to them and what's it worth to me? And let's find middle ground. And I feel like also it allows our customers to be happy. Like, everybody is happy because they know what they need. I know what I need. I know what it's worth to me. They know what it's worth to them. We negotiate, find that middle ground, and we are happy, man. And my customers are happy. I'm happy. We have a good time. That's why we need to get into gun sales.
I know, right?
I already am in, but just not directly. I'm marketing for them.
Right.
Work it out. It's great. Anyway, good stuff. Oh man, anything else we need to talk about today?
No, I think we got it covered, baby.
Cool.
Baby? Why'd I call you baby? I think we got it covered there, baby.
It's all right. You know what? I'll let it go.
Brother, that's what I meant to say. Brother, you're not my baby. You're not my baby.
That's all right. Yeah, man. I think this was fun. Also, I think we needed a light one where we talked about fun stuff because there's been too much downer in all that's happening. Hey, we've been dodging some executive orders so far, man. He's been throwing out some really bad ones, but haven't been too many hitting us gun people yet. I'm sure they're coming, but they don't mean anything if you don't obey them. So,
but oh man, we were talking right before the podcast. Wasn't it right before? How many gun checks there were? There were like 25 million in the highest year we had on record, and then there's been like 38 million last year in 2020. And then again here in California, we've had the second wave because Biden won, and it's like, oh crap, he's going to take away guns, and it's like now again you can't find any guns. It's crazy.
Yeah, we're selling guns like crazy. It's an amazing time. Well, and here's the thing that I encourage everybody on. We had, and one more minute, I'm sorry, but we know that there was somewhere between 300 million and 400 million guns in the US at the start of 2020. Like, it's hard to know how many, but roughly at least
they're guessing, right? Because I've heard numbers as high as 600 million. I don't think they really know.
I have too, and I honestly think it's a very conservative number to say.
Probably,
because they say something like for every 100 people there are 120 guns is what they were saying, and I'm like, I think that's very conservative because you think most gun owners don't own just one gun.
Right. A
lot of people own guns, and the ones who do will regularly have 6, 7, 8. Right. 50, right?
I call all those starter numbers, but
exactly.
Anyway.
Rookie numbers. But so you think about all that, and then what did we say? However many million were sold in 2020, and now already in 2021 we're having another bump. Like the number of guns out there, it's just physically impossible for them to get them all. Right. Yeah. And so I'm reminding people of like, well, we almost talked about this. We forgot to talk about this. We got to get off. Maybe we'll talk about it. I'm watching Manhunt where they're going after Richard Jewell. Right. And first of all, you're seeing how they're railroading this guy. Right. And it's awful. But it's taking scores of FBI agents and who knows how many hundreds of hours of research to even get the wrong guy. Right. So if they're after every gun owner, and they're going to try to capture, prosecute, get the guns, whatever, it's never going to happen. Like, they just can't. The only way that they could do it is through a willful buyback or a willful whatever. And so just don't comply. There's no way they will have the resources to come after every one of us. That's a whole other thing for another time, and it's all hypothetical in Minecraft. So we'll talk about that another time. But anyway, that's good news. There's a lot of guns sold, boys and girls.
My pastor told me not to comply with the FBI.
Yeah, and actually, if we want to have that conversation, if you are going to obey God's word in accordance with Romans 13, in accordance with the whole counsel of Scripture on your role to rescue those being led away to the slaughter and provide protection for your family, if you're going to believe in Romans 13, what God's word says, you cannot comply with unjust laws that do not align with either the Constitution or God's law. And so think about that a little bit. That's a whole other thing. That's That's some ethics discussion that not everybody agrees with, but I am right about.
But I am right.
I'm serious. I'm not the only one. But like, yeah, I always remind people, like, let's just really read Romans 13. Let's exegete this passage and see what it says, because it doesn't say what you think it says. You still have freedom. You don't obey everything the government says. For crying out loud, it was illegal for him to be writing that book. So anyway, that's a whole other thing we'll talk about. We really should talk about that another time, Pete. But when I'm more prepared and when we've got more than.
Well, how does everybody check out Lake Erie Arms?
Yeah, learms.net. We're selling more training, man, like crazy. We even have some open hand training for you to do some basic self-defense if you are for some reason unarmed, which we don't recommend. But and then, of course, we have all of our other trainings, our individual stuff, our conceal carry classes, lots going on. Definitely check out training at learms.net. And, of course, come into the store where we still have a stock of guns. We still have some ammo. You keep on coming in. We're going to keep on getting it ready for you and keep on selling them. So we'll see you at learms.net.
Cool. All right, guys. We'll talk to you later. Take care, everybody.
You've been listening to the From Concealment podcast with Pete Mitchell and Dan Sams. Be sure to tune in next week for more gun talk. Also, check out the From Concealment website for more shooting-related goodness at FromConcealment.com.